welcome to episode 113 of We the GamerCast. It's the official podcast of WeTheNerdy.com, and it comes to you every Monday on iTunes, Google Play, and mother-loving YouTube.com/WeTheNerdy. Why do I always gotta scream at you? We could bring it down. We could make it cool. No, there's nothing cool about this. Me. Wait, what the hell am I even saying? Thank you for listening. I don't know why you're still here. Thank you for subscribing, rating us on iTunes. That helps a ton. As we're about to talk to you with my guest, Alex Van Aken, it makes a huge, huge difference. So thank you guys for rating us and all the shows that you rate while you take a poop. It's probably the most time-efficient way to do that, so everybody does it. This phone is filthy. It's disgusting, but everybody does it. So go ahead, guys. Thank you so much to everyone on patreon.com/makeusbetter. That's the reason we're on youtube.com/WeTheNerdy. That's the reason that we do 2 more episodes per month with recurring guests. That's the reason we're going to continue to do more amazing stuff on We the GamerCast. If you're a Nintendo PlayStation podcast, guys, huge things coming. I can't wait. I can't say it yet, but stay tuned. Later on this week, we're going to have a massive announcement, and it is all thanks to everybody who supports us, especially our amazing executive producers, like our platinum executive producer, Mr. Extra Life 24-hour stream just finished a moment ago, Corey Hicks, our gold executive producer, Sheldon Benedict, and all of our gentlemen executive producers that I just made up, Nick Militia, Joel Brooks, James Johnson, Dr. Doom, Jesse Armstrong, Glauco Schaefer, Joey Hare, David Ray, and Mike Drummy. You guys, we weren't thinking that there was going to be that many, by the way, executive producers. We think like maybe 1 or 2, but we actually you broke our scale. So thank you so much. You deserve every shout out at the beginning of every show. But if you're new, here's the deal. Every week I have sweet hangs with strangers from the internet. We talk about video games, and if you want to be part of the show, it's easy. Tweet at me. I'm Sean Capri. Sean, like Connery, Capri, like the pants. If you were here last week, you know that Sissy Jones was here. Holy Delilah from Firewatch, and Humans from Shadow of War. Holy crap. If you guys missed it, go back, because I'm super proud of that episode. I'm very grateful for how it even came about. Shout out to John Wahl, one half of the Megadads, another group who just finished Extra Life, and I hung out with them most of yesterday. And as I was saying to them midway through their stream, as they were having so much fun, just playing games and having a good time and hanging out with people, it all looks so great. And I was thinking to myself, why didn't I do it this year? Why? And then I remembered, Lincoln's here, and I don't want to basically just assume Chelsea will just take care of him. Like, here, take care of this baby, as if you don't already do that enough. I'm going to go play video games for a freaking whole day, and yeah, I'm going to have a great time. So actually, I was talking to Chelsea about that, and she's like, midway through the Megadad stream, she goes to me and goes, "Hey, how come you're not doing Extra Life this year?" And I'm like, I think I say this to Alex in the episode. Anyways, woke up this morning and I was checking in with some of the people who were closing out their streams. Then I remembered that I'd be shot for not just today, but for a few days. So I want to give an extra special shout out. I've been there. I've done the Extra Life stream, the 24 hours. It is insanely hard. And big shout out to everybody who did it yesterday. I'm going to miss people here, but high fives to the Megadads, Corey Hicks, Married to the Games, Game Moves Podcast, Quest for Pixels, and God, there's so many people. I just think that it's such an incredible thing that we do. Again, I talked to Alex about this. We'll get into that in a second. One of the things that happened yesterday is, as I was hanging out with the Megadads, and it was getting later in the night, and they're kind of looking for things to say, so we're flipping through John's library on his Xbox, and there's Left 4 Dead 2, and I'm like, let's do some co-op. I'll fire that in there with backwards compatibility, and took a quick download, and then actually it wasn't really that quick. It took a little while, really, compared to how much we played, because guys, Left 4 Dead 2, if you don't remember, is bloody hard. We kind of like worked our way through the first 3 acts and got on the last one and just couldn't do it. And when you're that tired and it's that late at night, and I wasn't even doing it the whole day, yeah, they just went on to something else. And it's too. I remember that game being, I don't know, more fun, I guess. It was just really frustrating yesterday. So shout out to those guys. Really fun playing a whole bunch of different games. That was incredible. You guys might know, just jumping ship here a little bit, that I have the Xbox One X. It's right in front of me. A few days before launch, I've got a review in progress at WeTheNerdy.com, and I put that up on Friday, and basically, as soon as I wrote it, hit publish or scheduled it for it to be published, between the time I wrote it and when it published, a whole slew of new updates came out, and they've continued to come out even since then. And this actually speaks very highly and very well to the success, I think, of the Xbox One X. It is going to enhance. I'm going to revise my review in progress. I'm going to update it and create a final review with some final thoughts. And the cadence at which these updates are coming out is impressive, and also the difference that it makes is hugely impressive. I've had a chance to play a whole slew of games just over this last weekend while I was hanging out with people on their streams. Played Forza 7, that dropped after the fact. Titanfall 2 dropped afterwards. Need for Speed, the Assassin's Creed Origins patch came out. Killer Instinct, I'm not sure if it was there or not before, but I played that after. Halo 5, Quantum Break, and FIFA 18. I played at least a little while. I actually had quite a bit of gaming yesterday. That was kind of nice. What a massive difference, you guys. And load times as well. I know it's silly, but on youtube.com/WeTheNerdy, I've got a couple load times. I promise I will be getting up more of those this week, the best that I can. I'm going to try and get some PS4 to Xbox One X comparisons up as well. I know that that's not like, I'm not trying to say that they're the same or like, look how great the Xbox One X is, it's trumping the PlayStation 4. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say at all. All I'm trying to do is, like, that's what I have. I don't have a PlayStation 4 Pro, and I know that many people, have just the PS4. So if they were to make the investment in the X, if they were to maybe come back in some cases back to Xbox, what improvement could they see? That's all I'm really going to try and say. And I'm going to have some sort of disclaimer on the video because, goodness gracious, I get it. It's not a totally like one-to-one comparison. It's just more of a consumer-based comparison. It's more for you guys. Maybe make some decisions based on that. So look forward to that. You can... Basically, here's the journey, and I talk about this on the Xbox Drive with Dave Moore. There was a time where I was like, I think that Microsoft is kind of selling snake oil here. Like, it seemed like this is expensive. There's no difference. I'm not seeing anything. And then the updates started coming out, and that is a difference. It is a massive difference. Some games, even without the patch or the 4K updates, there still is a difference. That's a little more minuscule. And that's where I was trying to see, like, if there is enough support fast enough for 4K updates and HDR and these different things that are happening, then it's worthwhile. And as I said, since I launched that or published that review in progress, the cadence has been nonstop. Like, I'm hitting refresh on the Xbox One X enhanced games list that they've got going on. I think it's up to 130, maybe even more games with status. Is it available now? Is it coming soon, or is it in development? And just the available now start popping up. And that's exciting because then you can kind of go back into your library and check out the games and see the difference. And it is notable. Like, I actually stopped. Here's when I know that my opinion changed, because before all these patches started dropping, I was going back and forth. I had my S and my X plugged into the same TV, same game running on both, and I would flip through the inputs. I'm like, it's not that great. It is better, but like, would you notice? And then as these updates started rolling out, I stopped going back to the S because it was noticeable, like really, really good stuff. So if you have a pre-order, I'm excited for you. I was very anxious this time last week I can't tell anybody to not pre-order. That's the whole NDA thing that you sign. But now NDA is up, and it's actually no coincidence, I guess, that now is a good time to be recommending it. So I'm excited. If you guys have it, let me know. Tweet at me at Sean Capri, Sean like Connor Capri like the pants. And if you haven't already, start listening to the Xbox One Drive. It's available at the xboxdrive.com, www.thexboxdrive.com. That would be amazing, because here's the thing. I record it on my way to work. It's 30 minutes long. It has to be, because I have to go to work at the other end of it. It's a great time. I love doing it, and I hope you guys like it too. Even if you're not an Xbox, just see what's going on in there. Maybe round out your PlayStation centric or your Nintendo centric podcast. I love doing that show. Speaking of Nintendo, finally, guys, my Mario showed up. Is my case here? I don't even know where it is. I'll tell you where my Switch is. It's in the dock, plugged into the TV, because Mario Odyssey, in case you didn't know, I have the latest breaking news on this thanks to Amazon. I love it. I absolutely love it. I just want to spend... That's so conflicting. I've got this Xbox One X that does 4K, this amazing piece of technology. I can touch it. It's right in front of me. And then I've got the Switch, which is also a marvel of technology in its own way, and the brand new Mario game. Everybody should be playing that Mario game. My God. this is not stuff that you haven't heard before. I know that hype comes into question and of how it affects people one way or another. I stayed clear of all the reviews. I just saw the scores and I'm jumping in and I love it. So I just want to let you know I'm the 1,000,010th person who is absolutely loving that game. So I hope you guys are too. Why don't we just go ahead and get right into it? I've been looking forward to this episode for a long, long time. Ever since I first met Alex back on an E3 episode that we did once upon a time. I've been knowing of the Alex Van Aken for a little while, listening to Pixel Pulse Radio for quite some time now. We get into that. And if you haven't already, go subscribe to, why don't I just get you to subscribe to 1,000 podcasts this week? Pixel Pulse Radio is a must. The show he does with Brandon, we talk about it. I've been a guest, so maybe start there. If you're a little shy, you can. I'll introduce you. You can come with me as a guest on that. I think we talked about Mario Rabbids when I was on that, so you can actually listen to me be happy about that game as opposed to what I'm doing now. OK Beast is like a rat pack of podcast gangsters. They're super smart, they're kind, they're entertaining. I absolutely love them. Here he is, Mr. Alex Van Aken.
We just talk about like your freaking setup behind you. I'm always impressed,
dude. And I also, just so you know, what's in front of me is actually even more impressive because right here is the X. And you are being like, your head is like actually bigger than mine right now because I've got a 40-inch TV on my desk. Like normally I've got kind of two very modest, like just 21-inch monitors set up, and it's a beautiful setup.
Got a very modest double screen.
I know, but it's like, but I got it like super cheap. I don't buy any electronics really until like Black Friday comes around. So
Same
I bought,
here.
Like 2 monitors. They're not really that great. Like actually they're quite bad. I've played a few PC games on these things and I thought that my setup, like that my rig wasn't powerful enough. Like I was a little out of touch about the whole thing. I'm like, man, Lawbreakers looks really bad. My setup must be really terrible. And it turns out that it's just really my monitors. Like I ran some benchmark and stuff. I'm like, what's happening? Like it's actually pretty good. Like I've got an i7 core processor in this thing. I got 16 gigs of RAM and like it's a decent computer. But everything just looked like garbage. So now I've just been, I've been a little bit more keen on displays now. So I thought $100 monitor would do the trick, but apparently not. Like those, you get what you pay for in many cases.
Yeah. So Black Friday is like always right before my birthday every year. Like literally, this year's the day before. So I usually have my birthday money in by then, and so I just like cash in.
Do you?
It's a grand old time.
Oh, dude, that is like such great timing. Actually, my birthday is like right in the middle of the year, so it has its own benefits of like basically every 6-ish months. Like I'm in the end of July, so you go most of the year, and then the springtime brings its own games that come out, and I get a good like kind of loot there. But I don't like. Although maybe this is the thing, Alex. Like, does anybody really have a birthday that comes out? Like a birthday that happens when there's no games coming out? Like every month of the year is good now to have a birthday.
Yeah, for real. Back in the day, I was positioned in the best slot. Nowadays it's like whatever, like, oh, you're in April, okay, here's like Witcher 3 or something, That's kind of what it is lately, I feel like, which is a cool problem to have.
Yeah, man, it's pretty sweet. Thank you for making time for this. I know today was actually quite busy. You guys had a good start on Extra Life. Why don't we start talking about that, dude? How did everything? I stopped by for a little bit. You guys had a sweet setup. It looked like you were all in the same room together, at least most of you. So why don't you tell me about the whole Extra Life thing that happened today?
Yeah, so next week we're doing the real extra, the quote real Extra Life for us. 24 hours
kind of funny. You did
today was kind of funny, and every year we strategically put ourselves after them because more eyes are available the weekend after.
Smart.
And so we always try to go on there and take a slot so that we can promote our stream for the next week. So last year I think we were in the same slot, so we were the hour before Kind of Funny went on. So it's like people are starting to show up. It's like you're getting some good views and some fun people to talk to. And so we just, if there's people that are listening that don't really know what Extra Life is, it's a charity benefit essentially. Extra Life is a nonprofit and they support another nonprofit called the Children's Miracle Network, which is like a bunch of hospitals across like the U.S. that like help kids with leukemia and all sorts of illnesses. And like I've had several family members pass away due to like cancer and illnesses like that. So it's like very like when I first got involved, I wasn't as passionate as I am about it now. So it's definitely a really great cause. And I mean, to be honest, like who doesn't want to like hang out with friends for 24 hours straight and play games? Like
Seriously.
It's like you get a pass from everybody because you're like, it's for charity.
It really is like this kind of awesome. Oh, I'm so philanthropic and I want to be like good for mankind or for my fellow man and everything. Oh, and then like partway through, because I did it last year and it was kind of like this. Has anybody figured out that like this isn't really like it's a challenge to stay up, but like this is kind of the best kind of challenge that there's ever been laid. Like this is the marathon that everybody wants to run. And so it's funny because I was talking to Chelsea about it today and everybody's, like you said, everybody's doing their stream and I've sort of abstained a little bit. And basically as soon as Lincoln came into the world, I'm like, I don't know how anybody with kids does it. And like, God bless the mega dads and everybody else who's able to do the show and kids are like running around and stuff. And I'm like, I don't even want to like try it. I don't even want to like, quote unquote, ask for permission. Like I just didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to be like, okay, Chelsea, like you've got Lincoln for like she already
24
has
hours
them.
straight.
She already has them the majority of the time. I'm already like away and I was away in Calgary last week and everything. So I was very much in my own
I
head
heard it
about
on
this whole
Xbox
thing.
Drive.
Cool. Well, thank you. So I just kind of like, I didn't even talk to her about it. I just didn't do it. And then today I'm kind of watching a bunch of the streams and she's like, oh yeah, today's Extra Life Day. I'm like, yeah. And I kind of like, I'm having memories from last year and how much fun it was and seeing everybody else have such a good time. And we raised so much money last year and it was all great. And she's like, how come you're not doing it? And I'm like, God, I should have done it. You're right. It's so much fun. I think that it also introduces people to streaming. Maybe if they hadn't started doing that in a way, and it challenges people to stay up, to play games, to fundraise. And I think that what you're sort of experiencing now, I think a lot of people experience too, is like, you sort of get like Trojan horsed into the whole thing of, I'll do it because I like video games, but hold on a second. When I raise all this money, this feels good. I like raising, I like fundraising. And that's similar to what I did as well. I did a marathon soccer game back in like 2008. We played soccer for 33 hours and I didn't raise a dime. I didn't raise a single penny, but when I finished it and then I saw this big check that they handed over to the cancer center in my city, I'm like, oh yeah. This feels
that's the feeling.
So I eventually kind of I did it again a few years later. We did 66 hours and I've been since doing like many things. And now I actually like make a living out of fundraising. It feels awesome. But yeah, I totally identify with what you're kind of getting at there at the beginning of, I kind of just like this. It feels kind of good.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, man. But yeah, you need to like come and like play some Mario Kart with us at least. Like come play some games next week and see if you can get away for a couple hours.
I think I might. I think I might be. I was also playing with a couple streams today, just kind of like dipping. And like turns out today would have been a pretty great day actually, as it turns out. So I made sure to donate to as many as I could today. So yeah, it's Extra Life is so special, and it just warms my heart that like, you know, people playing video games maybe are seen in a particular light by people who aren't in this realm. Like we all see each other and we're like, well, yeah, these are the best people in the world. And I'm so like, we have such a great community, but then it's kind of nice to prove to everybody who's not in this circle to like, we're human beings as well. We all like, and we're doing something that you guys never saw coming and raising just a whole boatload of cash. And it's awesome, dude. I want to talk to you about the kind of funny connection actually, because actually, no, wait, I'm going to go way back, Alex. I'm going to go pretty far back. The reason that I've wanted to have you on this show for probably like half a year was the first time you were on this year's E3, or was it last year? I feel like it's been longer. I feel like I've known you a long time.
Yeah, I've known of you for a long time. I don't know. I'm trying to. It's like there's a blurred line. Like
I know.
Where we started talking.
And then we're just
where
best
it
friends.
Starts and where it ends. Yeah, exactly.
So whenever it was, I'm pretty sure it was around E3 of this year, you had mentioned that and I came to learn that you did Pixel Pulse Radio with your stepdad. And I remember my reaction to that going like, that's unheard of. Like that is the coolest thing. And then I've since become a very big fan. I listen every single week, and
You joined us.
I've been on the show. That, like, seriously, between that and OK Beast podcast, it's just like check off of the old bucket list, man. It's so incredible. And I remember, and I'll get to this in a little bit too, I remember being part of the Kind of Funny group and seeing the Extra Life stuff that you guys were doing last year, and it was like Alex and Blessing and this whole thing. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And then you guys had your merge that happened, and you Pixel Pulse Radio joined with OK Beast, and that was a whole thing. But I wanted to first ask you about Brandon, because I have been absolutely fascinated and captivated by your not only you guys great to podcast together, but your relationship is something I think to behold. And I wanted to kind of like dive into that a little bit. Like, stepdad, this is a relationship that is not from the very beginning of your life, I'm gathering. This is something that has been introduced at some point. So where does Brandon come into the picture for you?
Yeah, so well, he actually, like, him and my mom were actually like high school friends. I never really, I think he might have seen me when I was a baby, maybe like once or twice. Like, he was actually like best friends with my mom's first husband, and then that's a totally topic for another story. But
whoa, have you even heard this show? Have you even like?
I know. Bring
that up. Okay, so you can tell me, just like, we'll skip past it. But usually when people say that, I kind of pump brakes a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really. The story is kind of weird. Like, they were just like friends. Like, no, I think he might have had like a little crush on my mom or whatever. And then I was like, I had to have been like 5 or I was like 7 when my mom married this guy, and that didn't work out. And like, so we were just like single family mom, like my mom. Since I was born, my parents have been separated, so it's always been mom's side, dad's side. Like, they were engaged, got pregnant with me, and then called it off. They've always been very amicable and friendly with each other, so that's great. But they just like realized, hey, this isn't gonna work. But they've always been like super supportive. Anyways, do
you talk to your dad much?
Oh yeah, I love my dad so much. He also plays a lot of games with me as well. Like, it's my whole family. But I have like an incredible relationship with him, and specifically, like, there's moments with him that are tied to video games that are just like unparalleled to me. But my stepdad and my mom, friends in high school, we were just like, they kind of lost connection for like 6-7 years. We were living up in Northern Virginia, and my stepdad, they met on eHarmony. Like, they reconnected on eHarmony or like Cupid or something like that.
Cupid.
Cupid, whatever it is. Match.com, something like that.
Yep.
They reconnected there, like, hey, we were friends in high school. Like, maybe there could be something here, or if not, we'll just, be friends.
Totally.
And so they started playing World of Warcraft together because they were in separate cities.
You've got to be kidding me. That's amazing.
Freaking nerds. Freaking awesome, but they're nerds.
That's awesome.
And my mom and I had already been playing an MMO together called City of Heroes. So we all started playing World of Warcraft together. And so like, I just gradually, I would start crashing their like quote dates. Eventually they kind of like, similar to our relationship, Sean, they started dating at some point. I don't know where the line is, where the friends and relationship started.
It's hard for us to mark our anniversary.
It's true.
It's hard. It's an understandable situation.
Yeah, that's okay. You have the ring though. That's all that matters.
Yeah, somewhere around here. This place has been a bit of it's under an amiibo or something.
And so we just started playing WoW together. I started crashing their parties, and eventually, I think like it had to have been like 2005 or 2006.
Yeah,
my mom and I and my dad eventually followed, but essentially my family relocated back to our hometown, Richmond, Virginia, which is the capital. And my mom and my stepdad got married, got engaged, and it was actually like that was when things started to get rocky as far as my relationship with my stepdad. Up to this point, he was just a guy who I played WoW with, right?
Right.
And then he was like trying to be like this authoritative figure in my life, and there was some clash there, a lot of clash actually. But one of the things that always like we could get along with, and one of the things that we really connected with was video games, right? So he was a big gamer. Like I said, we played WoW together. He was like one of the first people that I got to play like Xbox 360 with. I remember like we went to the mall together to pick it out. Like slowly but surely, like this connection with games helped us like relate to each other and and granted, I was also a teenager at this time, so that probably plays into it as well. Like I'm the mouthy kid.
Right.
This guy's coming in.
You were going to
But yeah,
rebel
like I said,
against almost anybody, and it's almost like
Right.
this is so textbook that it's like this is the way that it has to play out. Like stepdad
Exactly. It's like
comes
the
in,
stepdad.
a teenager, just all the angst
Yeah.
in the world, and I'm
Yep.
sure he was feeling very now. When you grow up, do you ever kind of look back at like parental situations
Wonder what that was like.
and just like, holy crap, how did they even like feed me
Yeah.
without like
Yep.
you know what I mean? Like even just meals every single day. It's like I think about that all the time. My dad drove like a 1970 Volkswagen Rabbit around, and I'm just like, how did he had 4 kids? This thing barely like it was like a clown car. And oh man, just so many different examples of that. So yeah, I think recognizing that, years later is kind of like, you cut him a little, maybe cut a little slack, and then you kind of giggle at yourself too, like some of the stupid shit that I said.
Exactly.
I know
man.
me anyways. I don't mean to put words in your mouth.
Oh no,
but
absolutely. Me
definitely,
too.
it's just
No.
like I thought I was so smart and thought I knew
Oh, yeah.
everything, and parents and grown-ups just laugh at you. They're just like, look at these kids.
I know. I remember one time I like. So Brandon used to be very particular about his video games. He still is to an extent, but like he's got kids now. He's got But back when we first started hanging, like back when we first moved in together, I would like hack into his WoW account and like play his characters because he had like high level characters that I didn't have. He'd get so angry. He's like, "Don't like ask me. Don't touch my stuff." And it was like I was just like, "I don't care. Like this is my account now. Send me your gold." I was a brat. But yeah,
I
there
would
was,
have done the same thing though. Even if my
Exactly.
parents did, like, because there's versions of that no matter what, whether it's video games or whatever. It's kids sneaking into their parents' room trying to find the Christmas presents. It's
Yep,
like the
exactly.
same. You shouldn't be doing this, but you've got it figured out, and nobody's ever going to find out. And even if they do, what are they going to do about it?
Yeah.
It's that sneaky. Oh, that's so funny. So you guys
Yeah.
managed to sort of like, I guess it's sort of not like a trial by fire, but it's just the
just got used
friction
to each
almost
other,
kind
I
of
feel like.
caused, just actually it's just traction in the relationship.
Right. And I don't think that would have been there. Like I watched like my little brother like was like just like immediately like a magnet to Brandon.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think there was definitely an age thing there, and like I was like in my prime teenage years, so I think that plays a lot into it. But still, like props to Brandon for like sticking it out. I can't imagine like it's easy to come into some like 13-year-old kid's life and just try to build a relationship and like be like a like another father figure to them.
Definitely. Yeah, it's
huge,
got to speak
like,
to
shoes
his
to fill,
character, because how many people just like walk away? Like they don't even, not only do they either try it and aren't very great at it, which Brandon is, they don't even go for it. It's like, ooh, baggage, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like these aren't my kids, quote, like I'm out of here. Like you see that kind of thing a lot.
I see.
Whereas
that
Brandon
with
like
people's own
literally
kids.
like adopted one of my brothers. So
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I don't perceive like a huge age gap though, but now that you sort of like kind of illustrated the history, like, and your mom and him were like, I always thought he was actually quite a bit younger and that maybe you guys were closer in age, but I'm gathering that's not it.
he is like I remember like he used to joke around with my mom like with age. He's younger, but I think he's in his 40s. I think he's like 40. I think he just turned 40. So he's like 15 years older than me, which is like another thing. Like he was a pretty young guy. And I think there's some like, I don't have to take you seriously. You're not even as old as my mom, that kind of thing. But yeah,
it's always
kind of
okay
like,
for like the guy to be older, but for the girl to be older, it's like, ooh, what's that about?
Yeah.
Like, why is that?
Yeah.
That's such a stupid
some
thing.
weird
But,
stigma.
yeah, absolutely. But that's
but
that
yeah.
was just your home life.
Exactly. And then just over the years, like we got closer and closer. And yeah, my dad, like you asked about my dad earlier as well. Like my dad's always been in the picture as well. So I kind of was like really lucky to have like these two awesome father figures in my life, like for over not half my life, but quite almost to that point. So it's been really cool. And both of them, we've played games together, like all three of us. Like it's a really great scenario. And video games are like, it's so cheesy to say sometimes, but it's true. Like they're just like a huge part of my life and those relationships. Like it's kind of happenstance, but it's a cool thing that happened. But yeah, so
that's awesome. Well, I think that you say like you're kind of getting at that video games are at the center of it, but as an observer from the outside looking in, like I see it being kindness is the center of it. Like I feel like
Oh,
the way
absolutely.
that you and Brendan interact and just you as a person are just so like genuine and kind, and you have such integrity that like that's the center of it. Video games are like the fun part, but like
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a weird question to ask, I guess, but I'm trying to figure out like who's leading. I guess they're all like everybody in your life is leading by example in that case. Like I remember like going over to neighbor Matt's house which I did every single day. And every time I left, my mom would say, mind your manners, say please and thank you. Like she would literally like kind of like read off like the rule book of manners and to grow up and be a good boy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And,
exactly.
like who is that everybody? Is there somebody as you in your formative years that's kind of like instilling this kindness in you, or like where does that I guess this is something that few people actually really think about. So I'm trying to ramble to give you a moment just to think about it, Alex.
Sure.
But yeah, like, you know, is it a result of your parents' original separation and then maybe people trying to make sure that you grow up still in a warm and kind household, or like what do you think? Where does that come from? Because you are very kind-hearted, man, and all many other great things I will get to, but we'll start with kindness.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, like my family's always been like pretty close knit. Like I grew up like I said, my parents had me there. They were 19 when they got pregnant with me, 20 when they had me. And so like I grew up with grandparents in both houses for a long time, and like it's almost like my parents were so young, like the grandparents like were huge contributors as well. But like I've just always had like, and like granted, like I wouldn't like it's looking back that I see all of this, but like
exactly.
In my early years, my mom was always like the person who like rewarded like my like I don't know. She was like the quote the fun parent like in my eyes as a kid. Like I had like rotated weeks with my mom and my dad, and my dad was always like the stricter one. And it's funny like and like you think like that sets me up to like hate my dad like when I'm later. Now like my dad's like one of my best friends.
What was he strict about?
Like, manners, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
Manners is a big one. The general like, and my mom was this way too, but they're just different parents, different parenting styles. But it was like you get home and immediately do your homework before you do anything else. Like I don't know, some kids didn't have that, but it's like you sit here before you do anything, you have to do your homework.
Turns
Stuff
out
like
that
that
makes you a great podcaster and video essay writer, which I'll get to. But that turns out that's probably pretty good.
Yeah, so my dad, I think, like instilled like a good work ethic in my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and a discipline. Yeah. Whereas my mom kind of like helped me. Like we were kind of we weren't poor, but we weren't well off, and it was kind of like. And whereas my dad's side was, so like with my mom's side, I feel like I learned to appreciate like. And granted, like even today, like I struggle with like greed and selfishness and all this stuff, but she like really helped me to like. Learn how to appreciate stuff, even when it's like not the newest, latest, best or something. You know, like you can have fun with really anything. And then so that was kind of my childhood, and then teenage years kind of got dark for a little bit, like just like family stuff. Like I don't think he would mind. So my dad tried to take his life after like and. Really ugly divorce and really ugly breakup that were large. Like it was like to me he was the victim in a lot of those scenarios, and he just like fell into this pit of depression. And that was like I was 16 when that happened, and that was like a huge life-changing moment for me. And that like really that changed my life up a lot. Like I went and lived with my mom. I was already kind of living with my mom the majority of the time. And so that kind of like had this huge shift. And so my mom and them started like, I'd be at their house more and stuff like that. My dad was actually like he like volunteered himself to do this because he knew I need to get better. And one of his triggers was like, he ended up being like a functioning alcoholic. That's like what he is. And today he's a recovered alcoholic and has been like a sponsor for people. Like, so there's light at the end of this tunnel. Wow, man.
Holy cow. No kidding.
Yeah. So, but in this like dark moment, it was, if I'm being honest, and I've talked to my dad about this plenty of times, but it's like questioning like, man, you get all those like all those feelings like, am I not good enough? Am I like, does he not love me? It's like
because you internalize what he did or tried to do.
Right. And it's like, in actuality, it's like nothing, like they feel like they're not good enough for you, right?
Right,
Like they just,
right, yes.
It's like you just kind of like, when those things happen, you flip it to be like, why don't they like me? It's like, no, they love me so much and they feel like a burden. And it's just like, I didn't necessarily have that clarity at first. But I love my dad to pieces, even when it was happening. And, I was there for him. I went to some of his meetings with him. Like they encourage you to do that as a family.
Mm-hmm.
And so he volunteered himself to like go to a halfway house. He was like, hey, I need to do this and get back on track. Like, meanwhile, he's like working like a full-time job. Like he's like doing really great like he's doing great, but on the inside, like personal life, he's not.
Right.
And so he's like, hey, I need to do this for me, for us. So he does that. And that's where video games kind of really play a huge role in my relationship with my dad, because he was, about an hour away from me, like in this place that, I could come visit him, but it wasn't the best of environments.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would play Gears of War together, and we would just play for, like, I'd get home from school or whatever. We'd boot up Gears of War, play Horde mode or whatever it is, Annex, and we just play for hours. And like, that was like, it was like such a great thing and blessing that came out of like this really bad situation. And granted, like if I could go back, I would not want him to do that. But it was this bad thing. But it kind of like we really kind of was like a wake up call for all of us. Like, man, we need to prioritize our relationship and like what we have. And so like that's where, like I said, video games really take a hold of me, and just like my relationships. Like Brandon's great, my mom's great, my brothers are great through all of this, my dad's great. A few years later, like he's doing awesome, and then life kind of gets back on track, like as far as family goes. And fast forward 10 years or so, and here we are. But yeah, so going back to like your original question, like who's instilled this stuff, it's honestly been my whole family. And I often fall short in those values, but I do try to. And I can tell the same thing about you, like try to.
I always hear that from people who are like that, though. It's like the people who are the kindest, the selfless ones are always like, man, I'm being really selfish right now, or man, I'm being really greedy right now. And it's such an interesting thing. It's this we tend to reflect maybe a little too much, and it's a fine line, but we become our own harshest critic, and it actually starts to change behavior a little bit. And I've expressed, a little bit of that on this show in the past. And it is exactly what you described. It's not that anybody else feels lesser to you. It's that, holy crap, how do you even begin to be the person you want to be for these people? Like so if you don't mind, like I'd like to kind of just get into that just a little bit more, because I feel like this was a very fortifying moment for you. And I think that it did answer a bit of the question too, of where does it all come from? It's like coming together after an event like that. You don't exit the other side the same at all.
Exactly.
So going to meetings was one thing, but like 16, like teenage years are just so wonky. Like, I mean, at the best of times, when we were functioning at our most rational, it's still pretty crazy. So was this sort of like one of those, okay, you don't have time for that nonsense, that teenage kind of craziness. This is as real as it gets. Like, was there, like, what kind of conversations were you having with various people that I feel like did ground you maybe a few years earlier than probably about a decade earlier, really, something like that?
Yeah, so this was like, man, there's so much change that like came into my life, not just because of like that event, but like a year earlier, I started going to church, and eventually like I became a person of faith and gave my life to Christ, and decided I want to be like this positive force and for good. And so that was like, so I had that probably a year before this event happened. And then my dad, tried to hurt himself. And so luckily at that point, I had this like incredible support system, Sean. Like I had not only my family, but I had like this other, like just friends, and like these essentially like some of them strangers who just like came and just like helped me in my time of need, and like were there for us. And granted, I didn't open up to a ton of them about what happened, just because for like privacy reasons for my dad. Like it's only like nowadays, like he's comfortable with like, with like, I don't know. It's like, you don't want people to like, I think in some cases, like some scenarios, like it could be perceived like oh, that's the guy that tried to do that thing. And it's like, no, that like,
well,
that's
especially
just like
back then, like now it's a different, like, and we're still not there. But I mean, a year ago, you look back each and every year going backwards of like, this is only harder to talk about. Every 6 months before it was only harder and harder, and it was exponentially harder. 6 months prior, 6 months prior. And we're only now, and I love that about this show is that we can just talk about it. Everything's gonna be fine. We're okay. It's scary as hell. Trust me, it is terrifying, but it's so much better. Like I have felt better since Luke Lohr was on the show. God, it was a few months ago now. But yeah, man, like that's what it's all about. And it is the video games that bind us. So you're talking about the support system that you had. I almost picture I almost get like just this overwhelming sense of support and comfort of somebody who you don't even know just coming beside you and putting their hand on your shoulder. You don't have to say anything, but that community that you had become a part of and are still part of. I'm curious, a year before, I mean, sometimes some change gets spawned by some of these very major life events.
Sure, yeah.
Becoming a man of faith is quite major in and of itself. What encouraged that, especially as a teenager? I don't talk about this either too much, but like when I was, I guess, a little younger than that, out of nowhere, I'm like, I'm reading the Bible every night. Yeah. And I just wanted to see how long I could do that. And that lasted about a year and a half. And it's like, none of it is up here. Like it was never really, I wasn't really memorizing it. And I was never really like a church every Sunday type of person. But for whatever reason, this was just like, I like this book. I just kind of wanted to see how long this could go. I feel like there's a good message in here. Let's go for it. So yeah, but it was never like that was such a small commitment. Like what a silly, flippant, sort of superficial kind of thing of like, it was more of a challenge than anything. Like you what I think you did is to the next level because you still live it today.
Sure. Yeah. You were kind of asking like what got me to do it. Yeah.
Like, did you get in a car accident and you saw Jesus pick you up from the wreckage?
So yeah, it was like when I moved. Remember I was talking about like my mom and we moved in with my stepdad that got married. We just gone through another move, still the same town, but totally different neighborhood, like nowhere near any friends. And to be honest, I didn't have friends when I moved there. Like all of them had grown up and moved away when I had moved back. And so honestly, it was my dad and my mom, both of which were not people of faith at all. My dad still isn't. But my dad was one of the big pushers. He's like, it was honestly just like social club. Like, meet some friends. Like I don't necessarily agree with like all this stuff, like, or believe it myself, but it could be a good place to find friends. And he was right. Like some of my best friends to this day, are brothers to me. They live 26 hours away from me, but it's because, and I like have these great relationships with them because my dad was like, hey, could be a cool thing. Like you might find some friends. And I did. And then through that, eventually like, hey, like this kind of like, I'd been like agnostic up to that point. And I was like, I've always kind of believed there's something out there. Like I think there's a lot of sense that goes, it's like a lot of like logical sense that ties into some of this. And I think it makes sense to me. And so I made that choice, but no, it wasn't a traumatic event or anything. Just started going. My mom started going shortly after. I think we had I think initially it was like a friend invited us, and then I was like, that could be cool. They have like a youth group, and my dad was like, you should do it. And so yeah, it was really simple. It wasn't anything like no crazy dreams or car accident. I just went.
Well, I'm glad that there was at least a bit of sort of a gentle change in your life rather than everything was just like boom event, boom event. So holy cow. Okay, so we've kind of gone into a little bit of the family life and really I wanted to find out where the kindness comes from, and I feel like we've got a really good picture for that. I want to fast forward a little bit, Alex, if that's okay. I don't typically like really structure it in this way. Like I just know, like I've been looking forward to this for a long time, if you can't tell. I'm like, I've got like 16 things that I don't want to get to the end and be like, dang it, I wanted to talk to Alex about
ask
this.
Away.
So I'm gonna
it's a Saturday night. I'm free.
Let's just chat, dude. And I love your shirt too. Okay, Beast. It sort of maybe doesn't necessarily look like Overwatch, but it's not maybe
definitely
not
like Overwatch. Definitely not.
I love the way to pitch that. Pixel Pulse Radio. It's a pretty natural progression from where we're at. So at what point, I gather, let me take a guess. Somewhere along the line, you heard Greg Miller do a podcast. You're like, I want to do that too.
Kind of.
Yeah, that was like many of us, dude.
Kind of, yeah. Like, so in 2013, the Xbox One was coming out.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, man, I wish like I was like dying for like reviews or whatever, and I wasn't getting them. And then I think I was on IGN.com, saw Beyond, and watched an episode of that, and was like, I don't have a PlayStation, but these guys are like really entertaining. Then I got them like Unlocked, and really the first podcast, I downloaded the podcast app on my phone and kind of started going to town. The first one that I really latched onto was Andrew and Renee. She used to be a part of something called Weekend Confirmed with Garnet Lee and Jeff Kanata. And I just like gravitated to that like crazy. And I think I started diving in. I think somewhere around there, like Kind of Funny was started. Was it 2014 or 2015? I don't know.
2015, I think January 2015.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I was listening to podcasts for about a year and a half. Kind of Funny quit, or Kind of Funny is formed officially. They quit their jobs. And then sometime that year I started thinking like, man, I've been listening to these for like a year or so. Like I want to start making one. Because at the time I recorded bands and mixed bands, and I was like, I have the equipment. Like I just need to like find somebody to do it with. And I think it would be fun. And that's where like I started brainstorming like, well, around this time, actually a year earlier. I'm getting too ahead. Let me pull back a second. 2013, I get married, October. Then in September of 2014, I quit my job. My wife quits her job, moved across the country to start a church, and had no friends. All my gaming friends were like on the other side of the country, 26 hours away. Like I had no one except me and my wife. And I was like, man, I'm like craving these conversations and like these message boards and like these like one-sided conversations that I'm listening to aren't cutting it. They aren't cutting it. And so I started like, who would I do a podcast with? Like, who would be willing to buy the equipment to do it right? Who would be wanting to like do it? I had several friends who like I think we would be great on a podcast together, but it's like, are they going to commit? Or do they have that consistency? Do they even want to do it? And I was like, man, the only person I can really think of who likes games like as much as me in my life is my stepdad. And that was like the natural step. So that was March or April of 2015. And we didn't launch till November 2015, but that's like when the idea started taking place. Like, I want to do this. Here's like the format and originally, and kind of still like I just ripped off like of all my favorites,
of course,
and kind of mashed them. That's what you do. Mashed them together and was like, okay, cool. Here's like the format I would want. And I was still like, I wasn't sure about doing it with my stepdad, just because I was like, man, this guy, he talks slow. Which like turns out I'm a very fast talker, so like we balance each other out pretty nicely. So my grandfather dies to cancer. I mentioned Extra Life earlier being important to me. Like that was like one of the first people I lost in my life who was like due to cancer, and it was just like it was a rough time. But the funeral was on July 4th.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and so I fly from Colorado to Maryland, go to this funeral. Very, very small funeral, like 20 people. It was just family, immediate family, and do that. We like my grandma rented a house in the mountains for the weekend, like on this big lake, and we had a bunch of kids. Like my little brothers were there, my little cousins were there, and like everyone, the family wanted to go out and see fireworks, just to try to like make something good for the kids for that day. It's just emotionally exhausting. Let's go see some fireworks.
Yeah,
I didn't really want to do it, so my wife went with my mom and them. I stayed back with Brandon, and just started like pitching the idea, like, hey. Been thinking about doing a podcast. I'd mentioned doing it a couple times at that point, and like we kind of started nailing down like what we would want it to be like, and that was kind of the launch pad that day to what a couple months later we would launch, and we would do our thing. But up to I feel like up until like October we didn't have a name. We essentially had a format, and like what we started like talking and like trying to test it out and stuff. But really it wasn't until like late September, October that we had everything nailed down. One of the podcast names I wanted to do was like Digital Streakers or something. And I was like, wouldn't it be funny if like there was some like naked joke or something in our podcast name? It was so bad. I had like artwork done and everything.
You made it?
Yeah, I made it. It was terrible. That was back when I didn't have Photoshop or anything. I was just like dabbling. It was very bad.
I love it.
I think I took like the Pepsi font and put it over top of some pixel art that I made. It was bad, dude. And then like the last minute, we're like Pixel Pulse Radio because we have our hands on the pulse of gaming or something something really cheesy like that.
Yeah.
I never advertised that, but that was like the thought process that went into it.
I'm going to say that in my mind every time that you guys start up or every time I see it pop up on my feed.
Oh, so bad. But that's kind of
that's way cheesier than I was hoping for.
So bad. So
I'm like, I like the alliteration at least. And,
I know.
Pixel's got to be in there. My wife's Pixels by Capri. Like I'm a big fan of the word, so that was
I was determined to have Pixel in there.
Yeah.
And he was like, "What about Pulse?" I was like, "Well, that doesn't make sense." And then we talked about it and we ended up doing that. But
so how fondly do you look back on your first episode? You've all this plan, like months and months of planning, and that's the best part of, and that's why everybody says if you want to do it, just do it, because like so much can happen from that like moment of I want to do this thing to the 6 or 7 months that you're planning and coming up with a logo and coming up with all this other stuff. It's like if you just do it, then you'll figure it out. But if you don't do it, then like you'll come up with 1,000 different reasons for why this isn't going to work before you even try it out. So how fondly do you look back on that first effort? Because on episode 100, I brought up like my first sort of monologue that I did, and like I had it. I remember I scripted the whole thing. I knew that I wanted to just be me and how terrifying that was, but I just wanted to make sure that this format would work. And so I had scripted everything. So it's me and it's just audio. So I don't have to worry about anybody like looking at me reading off this thing. So I'm just trying to make it sound natural. Like I'm not reading off a sheet of paper, which is actually, as another aside of this aside of the aside, is why I'll turn it into a compliment, is why I connected with your Lawbreakers, the locomotion video with Cliff Blazinski feature that he shared. And you read what has to be a script, because like the words and like the thought and the way that it's all blocked out is so well done that I'm like, well, that cannot be off the top of anybody's head, because that's definitely impossible. But you read it as if it is. And I just
Thanks, man.
Like, I don't know how many of these you've done before. That was probably
my first one.
So there you go. And I remember my first one. I'm like, I'm reading right off this thing. And yeah, if anybody I've talked about before, but where can people quickly find that video? Because they absolutely should. It's pinned on your Twitter, actually. Go to your Twitter. It's Van Aken.
Oh yeah, go to my Twitter at It's Van Aken. It's pinned. Yeah. Or like youtube.com/OKViews. I think it's like the top video on there, because we have it ranked by views for one of the sections. But
it's that excellent video, dude.
Thanks. And yeah, I got lucky with like the voice thing. Like I just knew I didn't want to sound like I was reading. I was like, it took a long time to like figure out how to do that. I still I mess up. Like I think even my most recent video essay I released was it was a little reedy sounding.
Yeah, but now I'm getting in your head, and I don't mean to do that.
Gosh,
no. Nice. I don't mean to throw you
I'm
off your
very
groove.
thankful of that compliment, and that was one of my I try to establish victories. Like if I do this in this video, here are my victories for this video, and that was one of the victories in my head. Like, hey, this sounds natural. And it doesn't necessarily sound how I speak every day, but it doesn't sound like I'm reading it. So
yeah, man, it sounds like you genuinely care, and the words prove that you know what you're talking about. So it's kind of like check for me.
Well, thanks, man.
Because video essay, I think it's actually a pretty brave venture for OKBs to be going into, because it's not like this is so stupid. I posted a couple videos of like load times between the Xbox One X and the Xbox One S, and it's like, the fact that it gets even more than 5 is stupid. I sat there and I hit record and watched this thing, and then I synced it up, and that was it. Like no thought at all. And unfortunately, that's just sometimes the way that the internet works, is that sometimes the most brainless stuff gets attention that isn't really relative to the effort that's put into it. And that's why I really continue to talk about your guys' video essays, because it's not even just that you took the time to write it, like you took the time to research it and to match it up with footage that kind of illustrates your point. So yeah, this is a big long plug for the OKB video essays that you guys have.
Well, hey, I love free plugs, so
trust me, like I don't even feel like I tell like old ladies on the street, like, hey, do you do YouTube?
Do you know
YouTube
Alex Van Aken?
You should listen to Alex Van Aken. Okay, so this was a
I've
whole
got a kind of Overwatch shirt. Yeah, back to the podcast.
Usually I forget where I went off the rails, but I remember the first episode.
First episode was not as smooth as my first video essay. I would say it was terrible.
Was it?
Yeah, like, oh, let me look. I actually, the feed stops at a certain point, so I think we did like Call of Duty versus Battlefront Field. Mm-hmm. It was like right before Call of Duty or Battlefield. I don't know, dude. There was a Battlefield coming out at some point. Maybe Battlefield 5, is that a game?
Nope.
I can't keep track. No. Maybe it was 4.
Probably 4.
You know what it was? There was Call of Duty Black Ops
Hardline.
3 was coming out. Black Ops 3 was coming out, and I was like, do you like Black Ops or do you like Battlefield?
Oh, yeah.
And like for our first podcast, like the content was, I think it was decent. Like we put a lot of thought into it. The delivery and just the flow was abhorrent. Like it was terrible.
Abhorrent.
Yeah, it was very bad. But I'm actually really thankful for that first episode. We actually dropped a few episodes, and we got featured. I begged like all my friends. Like I was messaging people from middle school that I hadn't talked to in like 6 or 7 years. Like, or that math doesn't add up, but you get the point.
Yeah, I wouldn't have called you on it.
I was like, can you please go download this and rate us on iTunes? And we had enough people do that where we were featured on like iTunes New and Noteworthy iTunes What's Hot list. And I was like, I had never done a podcast before. I suck at this. And I really wish that would happen to me now because I'm like a lot better at it. But it was like, and so we probably had like a bunch of people like, oh man, this looks fun. Like cool cover art. This podcast sucks. There was one guy, one of the reviews, it's the only 1-star review we've ever gotten. He's like, not sure what the appeal is here. I was like, oh, dude, I mean, you're right, but man.
The best thing is that that's not even like really, that's not anything a troll would say. Like something like a troll
like
would say you just like ignore, but it's like, oh, that's like
real.
That's a real.
That cuts me.
I'm not sure what the appeal is.
Yeah. And then it's like my mom's fake account's like, great podcast. I was like, oh man.
But then it's signed mom at the end. Like,
yeah, I know.
Like,
it's like
dash mom. Like,
no, dude. So that thing happened. My grandma filled one out and she was like, the subject line was her name and her name was the subject line. She mixed them up. And it was just like, it's so funny. But yeah, so I'm thankful for that because like,
of course,
that was like that was some fuel. Like, I was like, man, we dropped an episode and we're featured. Like we got like top 50 and I've never done a podcast before. So it was like, it was pretty cool, even though we sucked. And it was like really fuel to like get better until I just continue to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah. And now we're almost to 100 episodes. So I'm not, I'm proud of what it is. But yeah, the beginning was very rough.
Not just the show though. Like I'm saying, you should be proud about that. Like you should be proud that it's been going on for so long, and also like your relationship with Brandon is so apparent in here, and this is something that makes you feel like that it is special. That it's actually more than just the content. You guys have a lot of flexibility in the things that you're able to talk about, and also the depth at which you talk about those games. Like I can't talk about anything that to the depth of which you talk about much more than I'm able to. And I always kind of like, I always give credit where that is due. I think another example is like the Game Moose podcast guys. Like these guys play like 100 games a week, and like where I'm just dipping my toes in, like they're underwater. They've got like they're diving around and coming up with the gems that are at the bottom of the ocean, and it's so incredible. So you guys are able to speak to a breadth and depth of games. I've always really thought that was great. But even more than that, do you find that like the relationship with Brandon has built up over the years, or you guys like realize, hey, we actually built something together? Like that's kind of cool. My dad, I'm looking at the bathroom that my dad and I worked on, and like it almost
it's like so many
apart.
memories. Yeah.
I mean, well, no, it's dude. I mean, I'm
really?
grateful. I couldn't have done this without him, but
no,
I don't know. I feel like this is probably a pretty common story, unfortunately, of like sons working or like renovating with their dads. But it's like
just things going awry.
So frustrating. And that's the thing. It's just like I love my dad to the end of the earth, but like some of the geometry, like, I'm definitely not, and I'm not a carpenter. I'm not like I'm not a handyman at all. But I know how circles work. Like I know that like how like. So when it came time to like drill holes in like the shower walls, and it's just like, oh my God, this is, and Chelsea's
getting
like,
real.
But we're not like, we are pretty passive, but very like, if I get frustrated, it's just like the tension. Oh man, it's like it's time to go. And I'm like the guilt mounting up of he's a half an hour away from home because like we don't live right next door to each other, and Canada's so vast. We all like neighbors are 20 minutes apart. No, it's not really like that. But I feel so horrible that he's going out of his way to help, and I'm getting frustrated. But anyway, you guys build this podcast and it's awesome, and then you can kind of look back and go like, look at that. We're like, this isn't typical. So I think that's been pretty sweet. Blessing. It's been a blessing for you to also then come across this other guy on the internet. When did you guys kind of recognize each other from across a chasm and go, we should build a bridge and come together because we're pretty awesome?
Oh man, I met Blessing. So at this time I was pretty deep into the Kind of Funny community. I think I'd been like hanging around for like a year or so. And Blessing's the first person who like I've built like such a strong relationship with from that place. We were just like, it was like some obscure Christian rap thread. Somebody's like, have you heard of this? Like, what are your favorite rappers that are clean or something like that? And it's like, we both said like, you should check out Beautiful Eulogy. Like they're doing things that nobody else is. And from there I was like, you like Beautiful Eulogy? And cause
we just become best friends?
Yeah, pretty much like that Step Brothers moment. And from there we just kind of started hitting off. I think that was like February or March of, it hasn't been that long, honestly. It feels like it's been a lot longer. I think it's like March 2016. Like, not crazy long. Yeah, not crazy long ago. And we just like started hitting. We had so much in common. Like we're both like Christians. Like we can connect on much more than just video games in a lot of ways. Right. And so from there we just started like talking more. Then the Overwatch beta came out. The public beta. I was like, dude, play this with me. Like I want to talk to you and play with you. Like let's take this to the next level. And yeah, so we started playing Overwatch. That was like the first time like I talked to him like voice to voice, and I was and like we just like hit it off, and like he was hilarious. I was doing my best to be hilarious. And yeah, like it was just a great time. And then a couple months after that, or maybe a couple weeks after that, Kind of Funny Live 2 was happening. And we made plans to meet up there and hang out. He was
Were you there?
Yeah, I was.
Oh, dang it. You probably stepped on my toes, too, just like Kaylee Woomer. And we didn't even know. She just stepped on my toes and kept going. Yeah. What a monster.
Yeah, for real. I think at the time, like, I didn't know who you were. I think I spotted you at one point, and I was like, I think that's the guy that Fiona talks about. Or maybe it was Kaylee. I don't know. I'm confusing my timelines. But anyways, like I had heard of you, but I didn't know you. And I was like, I'm not going up to that stranger.
Dude, I felt the same. Oh man, if I could only do it over again.
Right?
I know. But it's just the big groups, and I'm better at this. I'm better at the one-on-one, and
I'm right there with you.
Like just terrifying. I saw Amy Gills and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta run away. Like, yeah, totally. Like she's so sweet and so nice, but I'm like, that's the Amy Gills. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It just comes with the sort of, and then Sean Pitts is right there too.
Yeah, exactly.
Not gonna I'll just stand over here. You guys do your giant group shot, and that looks amazing. And I wish I was there. I'll Photoshop myself in later, like just a sad high school kid.
So that's where that photo came from behind you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, can you imagine? It's like right here. I did that actually for a soccer team picture where I was injured and I didn't make the game, where they took the team picture, and I very poorly. It wasn't even Photoshop. It was like Windows Paint. And I like took a picture of me not even playing soccer, and just like that square crop, put myself in. And then I drew the net that they were standing in front of. Like I drew that on my picture, awesome. Like a little cross white lines and stuff. So yeah, so you were at Kind of Funny Live 2. This is, man, what a catalyst for so many projects and creativities and friendships. Kind of Funny itself. And then, yeah, whenever they're like, please everybody come to San Francisco. And yeah, people stay with each other. Like you get together in hotels and play video games all night and talk about games and just life and stuff. It's amazing, man. Yeah.
So we met there. Like his sister lived there, so we didn't share a hotel room or anything. I was with my wife. Kayla came with me as well. And so we were just kind of chilling, and he showed up, and we just started talking like usual. Like at this point I think we might have, no, I'm getting my timelines confused. Yeah, we were just playing Overwatch together, playing Rocket League together, just having a good time. Meet him at Kind of Funny Live 2. That kind of like expands our relationship. Overwatch comes out. We really hit it off. I meet Ian through Overwatch.
Here we go. Yeah,
that's why I like that game so much, man. Just the people I met. I met so many people through that game. And then we start doing a podcast called Overwatched very creative name, I tell you.
Dude, it's amazing.
Started podcasting. That was like our first limited run series we did together.
Was it the three of you?
Yeah, it was the three of us. And Ian was like super into the Overwatch lore. Like he went super deep. It was very fun. And then I think after that we did that 5 or 6 episodes, and then it was midsummer at that point. I'm still doing Pixel Pulse Radio. Blessing decides, man, this Overwatch podcast is fun. I wish I could do this. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Wish I could do this on my own, like just every week. And I think he originally wanted to do like another limited run podcast, and he was like, man, that's not a smart way to build like a following or like people to listen to my shows. So that's when he started the OK Beast podcast. And he brought Ian was like the only other person available that he knew at the time, and they started the OK Beast podcast a couple months after our Overwatch podcast. Then September-ish of 2016, I log on Facebook, my notifications through the roof. Blessings released this diss video about me, just like tearing me to pieces. And that's when we start planning Extra Life.
Right. Yes, I remember the rivalry being this thing. And like the best thing is if like you're describing it as kind of came up out of nowhere, but like as again, outsider looking in, it seemed like you guys had something going on for a long time. And it was like, this is it, the battle of the century. And you guys are going like one-on-one, who's going to win? I'm like, who are these guys? And like, what? I genuinely thought there was like a beef or something. I'm like, it's kind of like
a lot of people did. A lot of people did.
Awesome. So is this Blessings like hype machine that he's building, or like, is it together that you guys were coming up with that?
It's definitely together. He's definitely started. I'll give him credit. Like he's definitely started the idea. And I was like, man, we should like continue this wrestling promo thing.
Oh my
make
God.
it into Extra Life. Alex V. Bless. And he was like, okay.
Yeah.
Like I was just like dissing you for fun.
These dogs actually scare me.
I noticed you jumped. I was like, oh. But yeah, so I did that. I think I released a video shortly after against him. Like I said, we wrapped it into Extra Life, and that became that. Like he paid kind of funded to talk bad about me and included that in his marketing materials. It was like fun. Like it was just really fun time. And we're both like very antagonistic with each other. Like we love each other to death, but
of course,
like that's just our way to poke fun at each other. And so that the whole Alex V. Bless thing was a really fun way to kind of, I guess, capitalize on all of that.
Yeah, man. And then so then I'm gathering that that's kind of like what's spurred on you guys to come together, and like now OK Beast is a thing that includes Pixel Pulse Radio, and it became like, man, you get like, so many times like these projects, they fall apart before they even start, and the fact that you guys hit the ground running, and it's like, oh, this is a thing. Like OK Beast has its own like identity and swagger and stuff, and I always kind of I've always respected that about you guys, and that
thanks, man.
First try, it's like, oh, this is great. Like immediately, like the brand is like something that everybody kind of goes, that's what I should be doing. Like the look of every image, every thumbnail is like, it's on that level. It doesn't like, it's like you actually know what like what you're doing. And then when you listen, it's like you actually know what you're talking about, and kind of all those other things. All the rest of us are just kind of figuring it out as we go. But you guys kind of hit the ground running. So that was always, it's always great to see. So I'm curious. I don't know if you had the answer, but like what's next? I just see like bigger and better things. The video essays have been doing very, very well, and you guys are getting noticed from, I think, the well-to-dos, the people who have made it already. So I always think of you guys and the Alex O'Neills of who's on that next level, who's on the cusp, I think, of doing the next big thing. So it's been awesome to watch you guys.
Thanks, man. I'm very, very, very appreciative of your support, especially. Like you're always there. You're always kind and encouraging. Like you're like one of the people that's like, man, this video essay sucked. And then Sean Capri's like, man, this is awesome. I'm like, thank you so much, dude.
It is. Trust me, I wouldn't say it if it wasn't.
Well, I very appreciate that and your honesty. I think what's next for us is, we've recently, like the video essays only started coming out. Like, I mean, Bless was doing them for like a while sporadically. It wasn't until I think August 8th was my Lawbreakers video was the first one that started our new schedule. We do them every week. So it's only been a few months. Like, again, all of these things like seem like to me they've been going on forever, but they really haven't. And like the merger was just in like May, and we didn't expect that to like get the reception it did. And I definitely think that we're good at making hype. Whether or not we follow through with that was always my worry.
You definitely do, because you mentioned the way that you started getting tracking and everything on the iTunes store for podcasts for Pixel Pulse back in the day. You guys just did something very special with your new Super Mario Odyssey podcast, and like even you sent out tweets, or I think there was a couple of you guys saying like, we really want to get within like the top 100 or whatever of new podcasts, and I'm like, what a great goal. Like who knows if it's even possible? Like, I don't know what that would take. Like, like in the top 100, are these million download shows? Like, I have no idea. And then you guys throw it out there. Like,
I don't either.
but you threw it out there like you're going to do it. And it's like, this is possible and you guys can help us. This is how you help. Like, it was just so confident. And then you did it. And I was like, these guys are the real, this is why I think you guys are the real deal, because you put out this like crazy goal.
Objective. Yeah.
It's like, why didn't I ever think of that? Like that's when you know it's such a great idea and you're like, damn it, why didn't I? That's so smart. And it can only mean great things. And then you go ahead and do it. What, this is an example of that short run podcast that you kind of are talking about with Overwatch, but now you've kind of got the framework of OK Beast as a website and as a network, and Pixel Pulse Radio. You guys have been, that's where people will come to know you and then go check out this other thing that also attracts new people, because Super Mario is the new hotness.
Right. We just like, I don't know, we did the same thing with Breath of the Wild. That one didn't feature anything. At least I didn't really check, so I don't know.
I can't even say Breath of the Wild without thinking Breath of the Wyland.
Yeah. Hey, I'm very proud of that. That was actually like an Alex name, and I was like, man, this sounds like something Bless would say. This is Alex, and I just cherish that name so much.
So good.
Totally
Makes
dumb.
You think of Stunt Temple Pilots
for it, but yeah, it was very bad. I love that name though, and I really love that show. But that's like you said, like we've got this framework of like what we want to do with these limited run podcasts, and that was like the first like successful collaborative. Like when we did Overwatch, it was just a podcast. Like we didn't really make it this thing, so we try to make them like events. And we try to have them like every like few months or so. Like I already know what the next limited run podcast is going to be about. And it's not about, I will tell you after this. Because
snap.
the hype machine, I can't leak info, or the hype machine,
that's
doesn't
fair.
do its course. But actually the next one we're doing is not about a specific video game. It's about like an idea.
The Xbox One X. Launch it.
Your new Xbox podcast.
You'll just make a verb out of the console name. So it's just Overwatched and
X'd. Oh man.
Actually,
isn't that like a drug thing?
Probably. I have a friend whose gamer tag is Jumped In. Like,
of course. Yeah,
it used to be just like, oh my god, it's
that's actually kind of brilliant. Yeah,
I know. He's the best. He's the friend who has like every single Game Boy iteration. He still has a Virtual Boy that actually works. Yeah, he's the reason that I actually collect 3DSs, because I was like, your collection is incredible. Yes, that's I would awesome. Also like to spend a stupid amount of money on stupid things that will never come out of the box. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. Ass.
We hate you, Rob.
Well, I can't wait to hear what's coming next. Usually, we've come to about that time, Alex, and I think I got to most of what I wanted to talk about.
Awesome.
Usually around this time I ask like, what are you looking forward to for the rest of 2017? But we're kind of there. Like, so I'm gonna change for the next 2 months as we close out 2017. Is 2017 the best year of video games in the history of video games?
A couple months ago, I would have said no. I'm still. I think I'm going to say yes. There's a lot of nostalgia that's tied into 2004 for me.
Oh, interesting. 2004.
World of Warcraft, like all these huge games. But man, like at the beginning of this year, I would have said no way. Like 2004 wins it.
Yeah.
I've been saying, like, just like talking to friends privately, like I was wrong. Like 2017 is incredible. I think like I might have to give it to 2017 because I'm gonna suspect my rose-colored glasses and my nostalgia are kind of like tinting what I see of 2004. So yeah, I'm gonna say yes. 2017 is the best year for video games.
Do you think that there's any way to like quantify this? Because I mean, everything obviously is subjective, but is there a way to sort of like compare the list of games of 2004 and like the ones that you mentioned are like even weighty? It's not even just about quantity. Like you almost have to apply like a weight to them. Like World of Warcraft, this is like a 2-decade, or I guess just a decade and a half, kind of like just this monster, and like still billions of dollars and billions of people. squillions and squillions of people. So yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to like wrap my head around this. And this
How
is the
do
whole,
we define it?
how do we even talk about, like, this could be a little like mini series of like of guess. And like that's why I try to like squeeze it into the end now, is I've been trying to figure out how do I talk about this. I'm like, well, maybe the last like 5 minutes or 10 minutes of each show is this the best year? How do we even talk about this? And you're my first kick at it. But I don't know. 2004 is like not what I would have thought of. And I was on the 100th episode of the Game Moose podcast with those guys, and
That's awesome.
they said, bring your list of top 10 games of all time. And I was kind of going through, and I made my list, and then afterwards I went and I found out like what year they were released.
Yeah.
1997, 1998 were huge.
They were
and
incredible
then
years.
2007 and 2008 were huge.
Yep.
Here we're at 2017, 2018, Spider-Man, and all these